Nice Radio Callaloo presents Just Another Look. Just Another Look is an innovative, exciting, albeit decidedly provocative and yes, certainly controversial, socio-political analysis of issues of a local, regional, and international nature. Just Another Look is heard only on Nice Radio. First aired on Saturdays at 6 p.m. with repeat broadcasts on Sundays at 9 p.m. Remember, you can catch us on the World Wide Web, www.niceradio.info, or you can check out our Just Another Look blog, www.justanotherlook.com. I am, of course, Keith Joseph. Today, dear friends, is Saturday. It's the 9th day of June 2018. Welcome to another edition of your favorite program, Just Another Look. There is so much to talk about and to do in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because each passing day, the average Vincentian is finding it extremely difficult to eke out a living in the Vincentian economy. The only persons who appear committed to declaring that the economy is doing good are Dr. Raul Gonzalez, the Prime Minister of this country, his cabinet ministers, and his minions. Those are the only people who seem convinced that there is nothing wrong with the Vincentian economy. And of course, they were right, because they are speaking from their perspective, from their vantage point, because they are the ones enjoying the spoils of the ULP leadership. They are the ones enjoying the spoils. And Vincentians have lived to see over the last several years that the issue of owning the jobs, the commitment or the command, really, to the minions, we must own the jobs too. We must not just own the campaign. We must own the jobs too. That has come to fruition. So the Vincentian economy is in a state. Vincentians are increasingly frustrated by their inability to eke out a satisfactory living. The trade union movement, for all intents and purposes, have been so emasculated by an administration that touts labor now. But they can respond by saying, we never said labor forever. And when they were saying labor now, it really had nothing to do with the working people. It had to do with the party. You see, what we have had is salesmanship, political salesmanship, political demagoguery, political mamagism. And what has been foisted upon the Vincentian electorate is nothing more than warmed over authoritarianism, a sort of benevolent dictatorship. But let those who have eyes see and ears hear. You have to wake up and engage your critical thinking skills to facilitate an understanding of and appreciation for what has been systematically done to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The society is imbued with a culture of fear. The society is imbued with a culture now of rape. We have long since become a society imbued with a culture of total disrespect. Total disrespect. We are in a social malaise from which it is extremely difficult to extricate oneself because we're sitting under someone's thumbprint, pressing you down, making sure that you do not thrive in your own society if you only attempt to think for yourself. To the line is the clarion call. We look after our own seems to be the mantra of the party. So if you want to live, as the people say, if you want to eat a food, stay with the program. Because the party is committed to not just owning the campaign, but owning the jobs and owning the country. So in many respects, Vincentians have lost their tongues. You know, dear friends, one life lost by way of drowning in this country is one too many. Yes, we are a country completely surrounded by water. But one life lost to those waters is one life too many. But the most disturbing reality is that the authorities do not seem to care. You see, while Dr. Gonzalez and his regime boast of how progressive they are, one has to look at them as redefining the concept of progress. Dr. Gonzalez has proven himself better at adhocracy than at planning. He's very good at addressing issues after the fact. After the fact. And so when we had the accident at Rock Gutter, there was all sorts of fanciful things, and people says, but you know, in many respects, the funeral was treated like a political rally. Because it appears that in some cases, in some instances, it appeared as though they wanted to make it seem as though they were so concerned and so involved in the whole after the fact situation of the Rock Gutter accident. But yeah, man, let me help bring people to the funeral. But there were rumors about transportation being provided. One is not certain, but those were some of the rumors. But be that as it may, the anxiety with which we talk about, let's give them a bus, but we involve others because we didn't seem to have the money to provide what we wanted to provide. But who cares how we get it? If we get money as a result of our beggar-maid policy, so be it, but we got money. And we put on a show. And for a while, the people of Pansy appeared to be the object of attention of the government. But that was only an appearance. Did the government pay attention to the fact that the real heroes in that rock gutter situation were the people from the area who dared to venture into the water to help save some of the people? The people who dared to challenge the circumstances in terms of the water, while the Coast Guard were dilly-dallying all over the place and explaining why they couldn't come here and why they couldn't go there, etc., etc., and people drowning. That is the level of governance, you know. The ULP administration has been boasting about what it did for rock gutter after the fact. But has there been any major attempt at addressing the dangers of the area? And in respect of drowning, all we get are lamentations, you know. All too often we are forced to come to terms with the loss of life due to drownings on our beaches. In the most recent case, this is not the first time we have lost lives at breakers. It's a regular phenomenon. We are well aware of the dangers of this particular pleasure spot, yet it remains a haunt for many Vincentians. At times it seems such an accommodating venue. And then suddenly, a huge wave comes and the people disappear. This is not the first time. But how concerned are we about the safety of our waters? How is it that we don't seem anxious to put lifeguards on our beaches? You may put lifeguards in areas and for many years nothing happens. But what you are doing is engaging in prevention, in preparation, in the unlikely event that how is it that we do not yet have appropriate international cautionary signs and flags at our beaches when we know only too well that tourists are as likely to use these areas as do our own people? You see, one wonders if this country will ever get serious enough about tourism. Because our approach to tourism is a model, M-O-D-E-L, of how muddled, M-U-D-D-L-E-D, is this administration. You remember some years ago, the Prime Minister of this country was explaining in respect of his approach to funding the Argyle International Airport. And he was quoted as saying, you see, sometimes you have to take a little bit from here and put it over there. Sometimes you have to take a little bit from over there and put it over there. And we are just another look called it the cut and paste approach to managing a country. And when you look at our approach to tourism, you see exactly that. 1 minute, we have rhythm and blues. Next minute, we have blues and rhythm. Next minute, we have nothing at all. The absence of planning revealed that there was no way in which that festival could have emerged. So neighboring Grenada, totally devastated by Hurricane Ivan in 2004, has been able to bounce back and has several festivals of a musical nature in any given year. And we cannot have one. We had one and we systematically destroyed it. We tried to tell the world that we could transform what was a rhythm and blues festival into a blues and rhythm festival. And of course, the world laughed at us and it collapsed. We could not even create a venue. Dominica has been holding World Creole Festival for several years. Dominica, that we consider the weakest of the Windward Islands chain. We have no idea what we are doing, so we use the cut and paste method. And that is why you knew there was something wrong. You knew there was something wrong about our approach to the Argyle International Airport. And the cut and paste methodology was so evident there. That for several months and indeed years, nobody associated with the airport could have told you anything remotely close to the actual cost of constructing the facility. So much for good planning and budgeting. All we got was a lot of political diatribe and fanciful ideas and public relations and political rallies on the site, rather than substantive analyses and engagement in national dialogue about what should have been a national project. That is why you can't really get any figures even now as to the cost of running it on a daily basis or monthly basis. We build an international airport, and now after the fact, we are going to construct the much needed solar farm. When around us, we saw small countries in the process of constructing their airports And even if they had to do it after the fact, we should have learned from their experiences and had the farm done and built into the original project. But no, we had a political agenda. Now we are recognizing the economic realities and recognizing that the dance can't pay for the lights. So now we are trying to correct that. Obviously, it will cost us more now to install the solar farm than it would have if we had included it in the original project. That is basic construction principles. But you could fool some of the people all of the time. But not all of the people. So that is our cut and paste approach to managing the Vincentian economy. Since the airport construction started, it was claimed that we were talking to international airlines, who don't bother to talk to you if you don't have an international airport. When you finish the airport and they see that it is operational, they will then talk to you. In the same way that we are trying to tell people after the fact how complex it is. You all don't understand how complex it is to negotiate with international airlines to get them to come here. Yeah? Well, when you found that out? When did you find that out? That in the 9 or so years that it took us to complete the Argyle International Airport, outside of the failed Bukament experiment, there's been no real response in terms of the construction of hotels and guest houses in this country, contingent on the installation of an international airport. What did that tell you? It was not a national project. There was no engagement of the private sector relative to potential hotel and guest house developments in this country during that entire 9-year period. Nobody seemed interested. Now, after the fact, we are hastening to try to get people to invest in hotels and guest houses in this country. Now, after the fact, that's how we do things. So we ought not to be surprised that people continue to lose their lives by drowning. And we are not seeing any genuine attempt at rethinking how we treat our beaches to guarantee a higher level of safety for our people and those who choose to come here and visit our country and use those beaches. Where are the training programs on water safety? Where are they? Where are they? What are our institutions doing to facilitate a preventative approach to safety in our waters? There is no genuinely committed program aimed at teaching people to swim safely in our waters, aimed at teaching them swimming for survival. But our politicians love to talk. They bellow all the more loudly when something goes wrong, and highlight then the range of possible remedial actions that they can take. Not long thereafter, however, the situation deteriorates and all is but forgotten until another individual dies. You see, our political leaders have apparently forgotten to appropriately recognize and honor the real heroes of the rock gutter accident. They have already forgotten them. It was good to have seized upon the death of those children at rock gutter and politicize it enough to try to gain a foothold in the area. And after that, we forget them. They have little use to us thereafter as they were before. As the families and friends of those who drowned last weekend continue to lament their loss, we appeal to those in authority here to arise from their patent myopia and forge a course of action with committed, capable people, to commit to training every Vincentian to learn to swim for survival, to learn to swim for life. But you're listening to Just Another Look. You know, last Sunday, the 3rd of June, was long advertised as the date for the second part of the opposition NDP's convention. The first part convened 1 week earlier at the party's headquarters in Kingstown and was considered the business section, while the second, convened in the South Central Windward, was billed as the political segment. Supporters of the NDP candidate for the area, Israel Bruce, had ensured that the planned NDP activity was well advertised, and of course promoted himself as the candidate for the organization in the area, and they took to painting the streets to ensure that the area looked the part. After all, as a candidate seeking to win the constituency, he did his homework. He got the party to bring the political session out to the constituency. And so he promoted it. But unfortunately, around 3 a.m. that same Sunday morning, there were others who were up to no good. There were others who were involved in defacing what he had put. And people were able to see them doing it. Of course, who did it? To some may remain a mystery. To those who saw who was doing it, that's a different story. They have a clear understanding as to what was the motivation for defacing what had been done before. There are some who seem to suggest that those who were involved in defacing the signage that Saboto and his people had put may have been supporters of the incumbent for the area, Minister of Agriculture Saboto Caesar. Indeed, those were the accusations leveled during the NDP's political session. And one could understand the logic. So there's a suggestion that it may have had the support of the incumbent. Saboto Caesar. And Israel Bruce seemed to have a very strong opinion in that regard. And you saw in the newspaper the headline, "Caught Red-Handed." Playing, of course, on red, the color of the ruling Unity Labour Party. But Just Another Look asks, is this the case? As the host of Just Another Look, it is extremely difficult to believe that Saboto Caesar, a former student of this host, an island scholar of note, an academic, a man from good, upstanding family, a man with his own young family, would ever allow politics to so demean him, would so demean him or allow him to besmirch his own character by stooping so low to engage himself in such a despicable political act. Just Another Look finds it difficult to believe that that is the level to which a Saboto Caesar would ever sink. Saboto, as an individual, is supposed to be worth much more than the despicable act suggests. And to engage in such an act would have him counted amongst the most debased characters in Vincentian political history. Indeed, if Saboto Caesar were involved in any way with such a debased political act, he would be bringing his own family name, and indeed all of his family, into disrepute. And so we ask, is he prepared to do this? We at Just Another Look believe that Saboto Caesar is a man of integrity, and that he would never sully his character by associating himself with the act of having the NDP signage covered over in the wee hours of last Sunday morning in a blightedly political act. Why would he want to do that? It is only a weak individual politically that would have anything to do with that. And so Just Another Look says, never! We don't believe that he would allow himself to engage or encourage others to engage in such an action, certainly just before the People's Convention. Nobody does that when your party is hosting a convention. So why would you want to do it when others are so engaged? But on the other hand, dear listeners, if it is ever found to be true that Saboto Caesar, the incumbent for the area, allowed himself to succumb to the nasty, debased politics that would facilitate engagement in the aforementioned activity on the threshold of the NDP's convention, then he would be deserving, dear friends, of the harshest criticism and declared unfit for the respect of the Vincentian electorate. If Saboto were ever involved, we would have to then agree that politics in St. Vincent and the Grenadines continues to plummet downhill to an all-time low. But you're listening to Just Another Look. You hear it only on Nice Radio. Dear friends, the state of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is in a political quandary. We want to say to you, dear friends, that a theme that we have been addressing for a long time continues to plague our society. It has to do with the status of women. It has to do with our treatment of women. Just Another Look calls it the blight of women in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the blight. And to some extent, in this country, we well have it said, we like it so. You know, there's a calypso from Trinidad and Tobago who had a calypso called We Like It So. He was being facetious, of course. And the recent case of the push by Zita Banwell to earn a place at the table of internal decision-making within the New Democratic Party by seeking to become one of the organization's 2 vice presidents has brought to the fore a number of issues here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines about the harsh reality of development. You see, because development is not about the economy alone. No society can develop if it does not develop its people. And that is why the Prime Minister of this country, Ralph Gonsalves, continues to push this nebulous concept of a so-called education revolution, which doesn't exist, but it sounds fanciful. Remember, he also pushed a wellness revolution, a term he doesn't use anymore. He doesn't use that concept anymore. And when you look at him, you could understand why. But that too sounds fanciful. Because he wants to give the impression that his focus is on development. Development is about people. People's empowerment. People's involvement. Recognition of people's worth. People's participation. It is unfortunate that every time a major challenge to the status quo emerges, somewhere, people who see themselves in positions of authority and or power do their very best to trivialize the challenge to such an extent that the individual posing the challenge ends up being vilified and made the laughing stock of others, if not of the whole nation. And then after having vilified them, we embrace them and says, see, we are peas in a pod. We are all united, people, because this is democracy at work. Hello? What nonsense. What utter trite. You vilify. You calumniate. You laugh at, belittle. Then you hug up and say, this is democracy at work. You know, friends, in this Caribbean, our political reality shows how backward we are as a people. We hold up tokens. We hold up tokens and says, this is evidence of how democratic we are, of how we have empowered people by doing them a favor of allowing them to rise to political leadership. That's our game plan. That's our game plan. This Caribbean is an example of how much our men continue to perpetuate male chauvinistic ideas, values, and behavior. And our politicians are past masters at this nonsense. Women can only reach the top if they so desire to have them there. You see, the core issue here is that as a people, Vincentians, like much of the Caribbean, are loath to open up to discussions of the reality of who we are and where we are on the development pathway. We shy away from meaningful discussions about many things, not the least of which is the changing role of women in our society. We continue to see them in a particular light. And for them to progress, it must be at our behest, or not at all. On our terms, or not at all. They are blighted by your total consumption of male dominance and male superiority. The core issue here is that as a people, we don't want to discuss these matters. The comments that have been aired in one forum after another in this country since Zita Banwell entered the race to become one of the NDP's vice presidents serve as a clear understanding of the decidedly confused state of the Vincentian community regarding women and their role in our society. In many respects, the comments heard were to be expected, since they are consistent with the failure of our society to address the obvious myopia that still exists and shapes our perspectives and actions relative to women's empowerment. You see, just another look insists here that the decision in this week's program relative to the lack of respect for woman and womanhood is not limited to the New Democratic Party. You see it in all of our political parties in this country. It is something that plagues all our politics. It is in fact applicable to all our political parties as well as our major institutions. That is why we refer to this segment of this week's program as the blight. The blight, not plight, the blight of women in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. What is perhaps most pathetic is that many of our women do not yet understand the extent to which they are blighted in this society. Many do not allow themselves to have the self-respect to stand up to the menfolk. When they allow them to believe that their beauty should best be responded to by taking them into the bedroom. What is the level of respect that you have for yourself? If you allow a politician married already to become your plaything or to become his plaything, where is the respect you expect the youths to have for you as a woman? Is it fame and fortune that appeals, that beckons? Is it enhanced status that beckons? You see, and many people don't want to discuss it. And it is interesting that since that time, the Unity Labour Party has been bending over backwards to give the impression that they have been empowering women. Where have they done that? You see, women's empowerment is not, as we have seen in their article in this week's papers. Look how many women we have appointed to this. Look how many women we have appointed to that. Hello? You remember during Black Power? What it is the whites used to say? I don't hate blacks. Some of my best friends are blacks. Remember they used to say that about the Jews? I don't hate Jews. Some of my best friends are Jews. That's what you're saying now. We empower women because look how many women we have appointed. That is not women's empowerment, dear friends. That is the same tokenism that we have condemned for centuries. It is tokenism for you to take yourself and put, as you have done in the paper, look at the record of Ralph. Yeah, you start off with the leader himself and the party, and they say, look how many women we put here and we put there and we put there and we put there. That is not empowerment. What you have done is displayed the extent to which your own approach to women retains the old backward thinking that women have fought against for years. You see, we are not at a stage where women can dare to challenge you. When the woman got up while the Prime Minister attempted to speak on the campus in Cave Hill, he was not accustomed to that. And embarrassingly attempted to talk about we could take up this conversation at another time. She says, no, now. Now. So people are uncomfortable. People are uncomfortable that women get up and says, we want to talk about issues affecting us. Don't tell us what affects us and how we must address them. We feel uncomfortable because we are so accustomed to exploiting them. We're so accustomed to dominating them that we believe they should only be heard when we tell them they should be heard. And so here you have a ruling regime that considers itself progressive, that dares to put in print. You see how we have empowered them? Look how many we appoint here. Look how many we appoint there. That is not empowerment. What you have done is held up people as showpieces, and we will address that. You see, our continued failure to wake up in respect of the truth about where we place women in our society is indeed most debilitating, and gives the lie to those who hold their heads high while thumping their chests, proclaiming their commitment to women's empowerment and women's development. The fundamental flaw, dear friends, is that somehow our men still believe that we must determine when women are ready for leadership. We must determine that. We must determine when they are ready for respect, and under what conditions would they we will condescendingly deliver it. We still fail in our society as men to admit that we continue to socialize our children into a ready acceptance that girls and women are to be domesticated. That girls and women are to serve men in the bedroom in eager compliance with some divine law. That girls and women must accept discrimination. That girls and women must accept exploitation. That our girls and women must accept oppression as a way of life, being forever thankful that men see them as valuable enough to allow them to bear their children. Of course, dear friends, the essence of the argument has been that there is no room for elevating a woman to leadership because she is a woman. And perhaps the most unfortunate part of this comment, reverberating across the country, is that it is not in any way limited to leadership and politics. It is instead the accepted view in all aspects of life.